It was 1969 that Edmund and I first came to Papua New Guinea. I was in my 8th month pregnant with Jonathan at the time. So the idea of putting our lives on the altar was quite significant, because I was not only thinking of ourselves, but of the children as well.
When Grace and Edmund Fabian commenced the translation work amongst the Nabak people, they knew they had a task before them, but they didn't know the cost that completing that task would entail. In 1993, Edmund was murdered by the language helper.
As I sat there just typing up this one more verse before putting on the coffee pot, I saw Milanonge run past my window. So then I rolled my office chair back and looked down, and there was Edmund slumped back in his chair with an axe in his head. And not being a medical person myself, I couldn't understand why Edmund was still breathing, because the axe was so deeply embedded in his head. Of course, I didn't know that he was brain dead, but his body was shutting down.
Following Edmund's death and Grace's resolve to stay and finish the translation, Zumbek, a member of the Nabak and a close family friend, joined in the task.
It kind of gathered us, the family, that unity of the family again, to have finished the translation work. So I gave up teaching, and I was teaching in a seminary, and came and joined them and finished the Nabak New Testament.
In August 1998, with the New Testament finally completed, celebrations not only announced the arrival of the book, but bore testimony to the perseverance and dedication of the Fabian family, to God's faithfulness, His love, and His power behind them. This was also a time for Grace and her children to reflect on how God had used the loss of a husband and a father to impact their lives.
I know He has taught me so many things from His Word, and He has whispered so many beautiful things to me, and so many encouraging words. Then I say, oh, well, I wouldn't have wanted to miss that. I'm actually thankful for the experience, because I have learned something about God that I didn't know before.
A lot of people think this is a great tragedy, and they say how awful it is, and it is a tragedy, but to me a real tragedy is those children who have been rejected from birth, who have never had a father, who have never known what it's like to be loved, you know, by a mom, and to have a family that they can be secure with. And one of the reasons why my father died was just so I could have more of a heart for those people who don't have parents, and that I could feel their hearts as well.
God has been teaching me a lot over the years, and the most important thing is that whenever I have a hardship, I know that He'll be there, because He proved Himself to be there when my dad died, and I know that there'll be other hardships and trials, and I know I can depend on Him.
There was just no way I could have survived that summer, and that summer was especially hard, but even the coming years without having God on my side. And I just love that verse that says his power is made perfect in my weakness, and that was really a time where I saw His strength was when I was so completely weak and didn't have any control over what was happening. And definitely I'm closer to Him as a result of this.
God's working in my life, and I can kind of see the whole plan unfold as I live day to day, and I can understand the bigger picture now and see how everything's worked out to glorify God. And I had never dreamed that I would be a missionary or, serving the Lord overseas. So that was a complete change.
We say the same words, he never leaves us, but now we know that with full assurance that he really has been there for us. He didn't fail me. He was there. I think that I would do it again, not because I am just naive or full of dedication, but I think I would do it for Jesus. So while God's grace is being poured out to me and his word is being an encouragement, the whole family of God is supporting me through their prayers. It's a wonderful experience when the body of Christ does what it's supposed to do.
There are times when the situation looks hopeless, when the end of the translation seems so far away, when we wonder why God allows a tragedy or a major setback. Some of our colleagues are at that place today. Please pray for them. Pray that they may have a new awareness of the depth of God's love, an increased sense of his presence, and a fresh understanding of his grace.
Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. I would have grown weary and lost heart if I didn't have this verse that reminds me to keep my eyes on Jesus.